Alright, what's up guys? It's K-Rad here. I'm back with another good video for y'all today. I wanted to make this video to talk about I would say the Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant situation. I wanted to make this criticism of talking about uh Caleb Plant in particular, and I guess this will be a good video because it seems like a lot of people are trying to say Canelo Alvarez destroys Caleb Plant, and I don't really see how this is a very good prediction to make because it's way too early to actually say something like that. But I think a lot of people are just being very dubious and very how should I say, delusional in the sense of using Caleb Plant as like a weak link of 168 out of the super middleweight division to be the guy that will make an embarrassment out of American boxing to lose to a guy like Canelo Alvarez. And I find that to be mentally retarded. I personally think Caleb Plant is a very dangerous fighter. Caleb Plant has a lot of tools that he utilizes in the ring that I believe he's going to probably perform at a greater level against a guy like Canelo because I don't see Caleb being that type of guy to quit in the ring. And I mean, even if you look at the Jose Uzcategui fight, I mean, even though Jose was one dimensional, Caleb was getting hit, but Caleb did not give up. And I think Caleb needed that fight so that way it could elevate his skill set to the next level. And yes, people could say, "Oh, he fought two bums or three bums prior to that." Or he fought Vincent Faken Butts and he fought Caleb Truax, which that shit didn't make any sense. Oh, and yeah, he fought Mike Lee prior to that. Yeah, he fought Mike Lee, Vincent, and then Caleb, which I think all three of those fighters are trash. But I guess what people would ask is like, why didn't he fight like a guy like Edgar Berlanga? Which I mean, I think all part of Billy's plan was just wait on Canelo, and I don't see how that isn't a bad idea because why would you want to risk losing your belt to a guy like David Benavidez or Jamal Charlo when you could hold up on those fights and then you could fight those guys later in the future because it would make sense to beat Canelo and not lose your belt to those guys because those guys will turn the tables against you, and if you do lose then it would make sense on your angle to avoid those fights for now, which I'm not saying that's a form of ducking, that's just a form of using proper business tactics to keep your belt on the line longer because eventually like somebody might beat you, but it would be best to be beat by a guy at at the level of what we're talking about in a undisputed unification match. That would make perfect sense in the world. And I mean, Caleb, he doesn't have to prove anything else more. He did what he had to do, and he won a world title in the hardest way possible by going to war with Jose, Uzcategui. But I mean, look, he's hungry. Caleb Plant does not see defeat. He's not expecting to lose. He's expecting to win. And Caleb Plant, like, the way he works inside the gym whenever he practices on his skill set into the ring, I think Caleb Plant, he's going to show something a lot different to the world that Canelo's going to possibly be afraid of. And this is going to be the title of my video to say why Caleb Plant should not be signed off. More so, why people should stop sleeping on Caleb Plant. And I'm going to be honest about this. Caleb Plant is a very, very, I say very dangerous fighter. It may not seem like it, but let me tell you something. If you look at how he spars and you look at how he fights, it's two completely different people. It may not seem like that Caleb tries as much, in a real fight, in a pro bout, but in sparring, in sparring, he dominates. He does very well. And Caleb, he's super slick. He has amazing footwork. His ring IQ is just as, I would say, almost identical with Canelo, because if Canelo knows that the way he looked like against Avni Yildirim and Caleb Smith and fucking Billy Joe Saunders or Billy Ho Saunders, he's gonna get stopped by Charlo. Charlo will kill that man. He will beat the fuck out of that Mexican ass. But Caleb, if Caleb styles on Canelo way worse than what Billy Joe did to him, do you understand the frustration that Canelo will have all fight long? It's not gonna be no fucking Amir Khan fight. Canelo's gonna gas the fuck out in the later rounds, and Caleb is going to style on him. And I think what Caleb should be doing is watching that Floyd tape and trying to replicate it. I'm not saying replicate it completely, but I'm saying if Caleb wants to get that work in with Floyd, I would call him up and I would go out there and go and get it. So if Caleb, if he is listening, or anyone out of your team is listening, I would try to get that work in with Floyd. I think Caleb has a good team. I think his trainer is good. I think his father gives him good support and great tips and tricks. So I think what Caleb needs to do, he needs to understand that Canelo, he's a very dangerous inside fighter, but I don't see Canelo really hurting Caleb unless Caleb lets Canelo hit him at unnecessary spots. And I don't think Caleb is going to let that happen, because Caleb, he has amazing defense, he has great reflexes, and he has good timing. And if he catches Caleb's timing, that might be a bad night for Caleb, but I don't see that happening because Caleb, he has great ring IQ. It may not look like it in a fight, but I will tell you, he does have good ring IQ because he adapts very well to a fight. Because yes, in his last few fights, it may not seem like that he did anything to look good in, but I would say this, Caleb is probably just a very mysterious fighter that you can't figure out yet, to come until the Canelo fight. And I think what Caleb is going to do to Canelo, he's going to do the things that Floyd did to Canelo, and he's going to give Canelo issues. He's going to move around the ring. He's going to jab Canelo all rounds long, and he is not going to let Canelo hit him. Because what Floyd did, he did the same exact thing, but what Floyd did is that he got the timing down. He knew what Canelo, was going to hit him with. If Canelo goes in with like a uppercut, Floyd's just going to hit him with that straight jab. Because that jab is going to stun somebody. It's going to get somebody tired, and it's going to get somebody hurt. And the way Canelo looked like against Billy Joe, even though Billy Joe's jab isn't the best jab in the world, but it had some clarity to it and it had some tenacity, I think Caleb Plant is going to literally beat the crap out of Canelo. It would be a very good sparring session for Caleb if he keeps his hands up. Well, I wouldn't even say keep your hands up. I would say keep your hands semi up. Keep it like, to the middle, to the middle section of your chest. And do what Andre Ward does in a way where you keep the ring in motion. You keep moving around. Because Canelo, he doesn't like to move. He likes you to stay there. Canelo knows he can hit you, but he can't hit you when you move. Because what Canelo does not do is that he can't cut off the ring. Everybody in the media say that, oh, he's good at cutting off the ring and making opponents frustrated. Well, did he do that against Billy Joe? Hell no. So what do you think a guy like Caleb Plant is going to do? Caleb is not going to stay in there with you. He's gonna make you run. Caleb is in his prime. Canelo, he's past his peak, man. And I think with Caleb, if he is going to be smart in this fight, he's going to think this shit through. He's not going to let Canelo hit him. He's going to move around. He's going to facilitate the right mechanisms, to win. And then once he gets that good, hit off of Canelo that gets him off guard, I would say keep your pressure onto him, but watch out for any possible punches because I think what Caleb should do is that he should apply pressure when Canelo is tired. Because Canelo, he does not like getting tired. And I think Canelo, he has to cheat for that manner to have that computer all bullshit. But I don't think that computer all is going to save him anyway because, Canelo has looked tired in fights, even to his worst competition, like Caleb Smith. But even in the Billy Joe fight, that fight alone just made Canelo frustrated, and he got exhausted. Let's just be honest. Canelo, he has shitty conditioning. He does not run. He gets all bulkied up and he acts like, oh, like, I could just cut you off at the ring. How can you do that if you don't have athleticism? You need to have athleticism to do that. You can't just, think that, oh, well, even though that I'm flat-footed and Canelo, he doesn't work on his footwork. He simply just tries to go in there like a brawler, like a Mike Tyson style, and try to like cut you off the ring, which he can't do that, but he does it in a really crappy manner. And he leaves himself wide open to get hit. He uses his face to hit. He doesn't use any proper slick style defense. I mean, Canelo is very like one-dimensional, and I think what Caleb brings to the table, that style will be difficult for Canelo. But if Canelo does figure out Caleb, that will be a problem for Caleb, and I think Caleb needs to switch to defensive maneuvering. But I think when Caleb hits Canelo at spots where Canelo gets frustrated and he gets confused and he doesn't know how to facilitate his punches when Caleb outreads him, then yeah, Caleb's gonna easily win this fight. But I think either way it's gonna be a good scrap. I don't see I don't see Caleb getting knocked out. If he were to get knocked out, it would have to be something stupid that he did, where he let his hands down and then Canelo just hits him freely. And I don't see Caleb letting that shit happen because Caleb, he works his ass off. I'm not just saying that as a fan. I'm saying that as a analyzer of his work ethic. He does not like to lose opportunities, and I think his opportunity is now. And I don't think Caleb is going to just let Canelo beat him because Canelo, he's going to be destroyed if he lets Caleb get in his comfort zone. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Caleb is going to destroy Canelo Alvarez. And guess what? If I'm wrong, then I'll just say congratulations to the biggest ducker in boxing. He thinks that he's going to destroy Canelo, or Canelo thinks he's going to destroy Caleb, and I disagree. I think Caleb is going to give Canelo a very tough ass fight, similar to the Floyd fight. And if Caleb does do that, all you Mexican Canelo dick riders will shut the fuck up. You're not gonna say shit. You're gonna say, yeah, you're gonna make that excuse to say, oh, Canelo, he wasn't ready, blah blah blah. No, he was ready. He got styled on. And like I said, styles make fights. I've said this plenty of times. But for all you Canelo dick riding idiots, you guys will never understand the true meaning of what styles make fights mean. If I'm a brawler, but I'm going up against a boxer puncher, like, what do you think is gonna happen to me if I keep walking into a boxer's punch when he uses defensive skills onto me? I'm going to get knocked out, or I'm going to get frustrated, and I'm going to lose. So I think the issue here is just simply that when people, review a fighter's skill set and they don't acknowledge, the fighter's ability to like actually perform at a level where people would think that that fighter would beat the other fighter, it's showing political characterization bias of the fighter that they support, and it's making that fighter look a lot worse, and that fighter has more pressure being thrown upon to them. And I don't see Canelo being that guy that everyone says that he's the main guy to look out for, because Canelo Alvarez is not this type of fighter that fights very well, because we haven't seen him in there with a guy that has a dangerous skill set that brings him to the distance of a tough fight. The only toughest fight I would ever say Canelo has ever had in his career had to been one. I would say several tough fights. I say the Lara fight and Triple G and the Floyd Mayweather fight. I mean, all the other fights were actually just lackluster. It didn't look like he didn't do anything. Honestly, Canelo should have fought Jermell Charlo and Jamal Charlo. He should have fought Andrade. He should have fought, fucking, who else? David Benavidez. If he wanted to move up to 175, he should have challenged, Dmitry Bivol or Artur, Beterbiev. That would have been amazing fights. He should have went after Andre Ward back in the day. Why didn't he go after Andre Ward? Andre Ward can come back and, test that shit with Canelo. I think Canelo would give Andre a tough fight, but I think Andre would most likely knock out Canelo. He would beat the shit out of him. Um, I think Canelo and fucking, let's just say Bernard Hopkins, if that were a fight back in the day when Canelo was a bit younger, I think him and B Hop would have a damn good fight. I think B Hop would beat the shit out of Canelo and make Canelo frustrated, but that would be a damn good fight. I mean, there's plenty of good fights out there for Canelo, but is Canelo willing to make those fights? And I say no, because Canelo, he is not the best in the world. He is the shittiest fighter of Mexican heritage. He's not even Mexican. He's a white boy. He's an Irish pussy that does not have balls to fight men of different ethnic backgrounds. He only wants to go after Europeans. And I mean, if you still want to say he's pound for pound, be consistent to say he's pound for fighting European cherry picks. That's really what he is. Like, he is not the pound for pound fighter of beating American fighters, black American fighters specifically. He did not look good against Floyd. He will definitely get styled on by Demetrius Andrade and the Charlo brothers, and he sure as hell will get his ass beat the fuck up by David Benavidez and possibly Edgar Berlanga. Who knows? Like, I'm not so sure with Berlanga. Berlanga would need more time, but when he perfects his style and he looks a lot dangerous in the ring, oh my god, Canelo would get knocked the fuck out. If not, he would lose by decision by a huge margin. But I think either way, it's good. It's good for the sport of boxing for people like myself to push for these fights for Canelo, because Canelo, he's running out of time. He says he got 7 years left in the sport. And I want to see Canelo in there with all the best fighters. I don't give a shit at this point. I just want Canelo to basically fight the guys that I've been saying he should have been fighting a long time ago, that have called them out. And Canelo needs to have balls to, prove me wrong. If he could beat Charlo and Andrade, and he could beat David Benavidez and all these other names, I think Canelo, he will definitely have my respect, and I will give him a lot more credibility. But I'm still not going to call you the greatest fighter ever, because you know what happened to you back in your heyday with Floyd. Floyd damn near stopped you, and if Floyd was a lot younger, he would beat the shit out of Canelo. I think if he got that same request to say, I want you to go out to 154 to fight this guy, Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather would take that shit in a heartbeat. You realize how many fucking people that would come see that fight? A prime Floyd Mayweather versus a prime version of Canelo Alvarez? Like, Floyd Mayweather would beat the brakes out of Canelo. Like, I'm just putting that there. Floyd Mayweather will beat the shit out of Canelo Alvarez. That is why these Canelo fans say Canelo now would beat Floyd in his prime in the past, because they know what the fuck happened to him the first go. So they're going to take that chance to say, oh, well, he could beat Floyd in his prime, blah blah blah. Yet they don't ever go back to the tape and look at what Pretty Boy Floyd did to his opponents. He beat the fuck out of everyone. And I mean, he beat your favorite fucking fighter too. Like Diego Corrales, I love Diego, and I have Puerto Rican heritage. But Diego, he was a damn good fighter. And Floyd beat him when he was 24 years old. Floyd, I think he was 21 or 22, I'm not too sure. But he was so fucking good. He beat the brakes out of Diego. And I mean, Diego, he got back up and he still did what he had to do for the last 5 years of his life until he died at 29 in a motorcycle accident. But literally, Floyd dominated the fuck out of Diego Corrales, I believe at 130. But it was such a good fight too because Diego, he gave everything he had to Floyd. So that comes to show like Pretty Boy was beating the shit out of people, man. He wasn't just there to style on you. Yeah, he did style on you and he looked fantastic doing it, but when he was there to knock you out, oh my God, Floyd was whooping everybody. And I say that with conviction too. So, I think Floyd Mayweather did everything right in his power to show why Pretty Boy version was a lot more dangerous than Money Mayweather, because Money Mayweather, he's a lot more defensive, and Pretty Boy was very defensively gifted. Let's not get it twisted, but the knockout power and everything that Floyd had when he was younger, even at a little weight at 130 up until like 135, 140, leading up to 147. Yeah, that version of Floyd was very dangerous. Like Floyd Mayweather was a very dangerous opponent, and I say nobody did not want any piece of him. I like at the time when he knocked out Carlos Carlos Baldomir, Miguel Cotto was sitting ringside and he watched that fight, and Cotto was like, "No, I'm not gonna take that fight." And I myself had to do research on that, and I found out that Cotto, he never took a fight with Floyd because Floyd, was there beating up Baldomir, and then when Cotto saw that, he said, "No, I'm not gonna take that fight now." So then later on, when Cotto took the fight when they were past their prime, it's like, yeah, the fight still sold a lot of pay-per-view numbers and everybody wanted to see Cotto take a chance with them, which Cotto, he lost, but Floyd said, yo, Cotto is a very tough opponent. He is extremely tough, and that made Floyd horrible in that ring. And Floyd admitted to it. That was one of his worst performances. But if you compare that to the Canelo fight, Floyd looked exactly similar in that fight. That's why styles make fights. And stylistically, Floyd Mayweather would beat the fuck out of Canelo Alvarez in his prime. And that's why these Canelo Alvarez dickhead fans want to keep lying about what Floyd Mayweather would do against a Canelo Alvarez in both their primes to make themselves psychologically feel good as if like Floyd Mayweather is just going to get easily dominated by Canelo. No, he's not. A prime version of a Floyd Mayweather that was getting knockouts left and right and literally outboxing you at the same time, that is rare in boxing. You don't have a boxer like that. Either you have a boxer, you either have a boxer puncher or a brawler. That's pretty much it. Or other type of styles that fighters develop, but that's really what the type of boxing people go with. Either you box defensively with offensive gifts, or you offensively are gifted with brawler tactics, and you have very little defensive maneuvering and adaptation in the sport. Depending on your archetype, everyone's different in boxing, but still, Floyd Mayweather had them both, and he was that dangerous to like outbox you and then hit you with conviction with his punches. So he had a brawler boxer puncher mix, and that's why that I like Floyd now, because when I was younger, I hated Floyd, but I wasn't researching him up. I was just saying that just to say it. But then as I got older, it's like Floyd Mayweather, he just enlightened me, and then he did everything in his power to like make me like him. And I'm like, dude, I fucking love Floyd. Like, I don't like him outside the ring. Like, he did some weird stuff back in the day. But I mean, as a fighter, I definitely respect him. You know, he's a damn good fighter, and he's styled on every single fighter that you could think of. I don't think anybody in the history of the world that has a Floyd Mayweather skill set had beat 23 world champions and consecutively had a winning streak of I think seven title, yeah, seven title shots or seven title defenses consecutively. And then on top of that, Floyd Mayweather would have been undisputed at definitely super featherweight, welterweight, and lightweight, and super lightweight. So I think either way, like, it makes all the sense in the world of why Floyd Mayweather is the best fighter ever, because Floyd Mayweather showed to the world that I don't need a belt to prove why I'm good, but with these belts shows how good Floyd Mayweather is. And I mean, think about it. If Floyd Mayweather, if he got undisputed in like four different divisions, you realize how deadly that shit would have, would be for Floyd. He would be the most feared and the most highly decorated fighter ever. He would be the Hall of Fame GOAT. If he could get undisputed in three different or four different divisions, which is very difficult, and I think honestly, like, sanctioning bodies for belts and boxing need to have a universal, like, unification title bout for all other belts, so that way all the champions can come together as one. Because it makes all the sense in the world to have that, because why the hell should this champion be fighting mandatories and not unifying the belt with the other champion? It doesn't make any sense. Like, all the other sides of the territories need to come together and come to war to see who's the better fighter. And I think it makes all the sense in the world to do that, unless these fighters are avoiding other fighters. Then no, fuck that. Just keep it to two belts. Have an east side, have a west side, and just come right together. Boom. But if you're gonna have, all these belts in boxing, you have to have four belts. But I mean, if you want to have what the IBO or IBA belt, whatever that type of belt is, fine. Add that in there. Have other fighters compete for other belts. But if you want to compete for like the major undisputed belts where there's no dispute, there's one fighter that has all those belts, and they can either defend them or move up in weight to challenge for one of them and restart again, go for it. I'd like to see that. I think that should be a rule in boxing, where if you have a belt, you have to unify that belt with another champion. And if you don't, you should lose your belt. Yeah, you should either lose your belt. Yeah, lose your belt, or it's up for a mandatory bid for the next mandatory to take your belt away from you. And then that person has to, yeah, that person has to unify. I think, like, that's a possible idea. I don't know if that works. Let me know what you guys think. I think that's a tremendous idea, but I just, I'm just sick and tired of all this fucking ducking in the sport, man. Like, all these piece of shit fighters that say that they're good, but they're not fighting top tier competition. It's like, you've never seen this shit like 10, 15 years ago. Which, I mean, back in the day, yeah, like, certain fighters ducked other fighters, but that shit needs to go, man. Boxing needs to be set up like any other sport. If you get into the sport, you're fighting tough competition. Like I said earlier, like, I don't know if I said this earlier, but boxers should be making a lot of money. Like, you put your life on the line, you should get paid extremely well for all the stuff that you do in the ring. There should be no cheating. Cheating should be reduced as greatly as possible. Boxers should be sponsored. They should get overtime. They need everything, man. Give them every single bit of gold that they deserve, because they put their lives out there for the entertainment of us fans. And I think us fans, we need to be pushing for all these tough ass fights. And that's why that I want fucking Canelo Alvarez to fucking fight these niggas, bro. I don't give two shits about what you bitch ass Canelo Alvaroid bitch ass fans have to say. I just want fucking Canelo to fucking fight these contemporaries. And if you guys don't want to see that, then to hell with you. Canelo Alvarez will be viewed as the biggest disgrace in all of Mexican boxing. I don't give a shit about him. That does not mean I fucking hate Mexicans. I simply am saying that Canelo, you are a fucking pussy. You have no fucking respect for your Mexican people, and you sure as hell do not have respect for the Mexican legends that actually put their lives out there for Mexican boxing. I'm excluding Julio Cesar Chavez because he's a piece of shit. Number one. Number two, he's a fucking cheater. His team is a fucking cheat, and fuck that piece of shit fighter. Number three, he's not the best Mexican in the world. The best Mexican fighter out there, out of all of Mexican history, either has to be Eric Morales or Juan Manuel Marquez or Oscar De La Hoya. I'm going to probably have to go with Oscar De La Hoya because he was a 5 division world champion and he had all the best fights that you could think of. But I'll put Marquez in there because he beat the shit out of Manny Pacquiao. And there was, certain cases out of those 4 fights that Juan Manuel Marquez could have beat Manny Pacquiao and he got robbed by the judges. But Juan Manuel Marquez, he's a god. He's a god in Mexican boxing. That guy had good defense as he improved his skill sets. But before then, he was banging, he was going after you. He made you quit in the ring. But if that doesn't help you, I'm going to go with like my boy Marco Barrera. I love Marco Barrera. Marco Barrera, like, I was watching that guy ever since I was like a little kid on TV. When I saw him fight Prince Nassim Hamed, which I think that fight happened like when I was like 1 year old. I'm not too sure, but I, I definitely watch clips of boxing, and I watch definitely every single fight when I was growing up, and I forever just keep watching those type of fights because they're eye refreshing, and it just brings me connected with the sport and the fighters that give me good influence. And all I'm saying to you, Canelo Alvarez, is that I want you to be that fighter again, to do it at a massive greater level for Mexican boxing, because I know that you could beat these guys. You could possibly beat them. I'm not saying that I know you can beat them. I just want you to be in the ring with those guys. But if you're not going to do that and you're going to continue cheating, then fuck you, Canelo Alvarez. To hell with you. Because one, I may not know you personally, and you may not care what other people say about you, but just know that if you continue to do this until your career is over, nobody's not going to, remember you. They're gonna look at you as the biggest hype job in boxing, and you're going to be looked down upon as a fucking disgrace to your own Mexican people. Yeah, you're gonna have with those dick riders that are gonna say, "Oh yeah, Canelo, he's the greatest fighter since sliced bread, amigo." Like, no, 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 no. You're going to actually have the truth hit on you, and then people are not going to give you that same respect that you're gonna think that people are gonna give you years later. And I think that's what Canelo is afraid of, but I think he's just doing it for the sake of avoiding that nightmare that he had with Floyd. Because you know what Floyd Mayweather did to him? He thought that the night he did fight him, oh, I could beat him. Gets his ass beat all 12 rounds and did not win a single round, according to many analysts. But one of those piece of shit judges gave a draw for Canelo, knowing that Canelo got dominated every single round. Also, another fix for boxing, there needs to be reputation systems for judges. Judges need to be kicked out of the sport that are evil and corrupt, and there needs to be a huge reputational review system of judges that get reviewed constantly for their performance, and whoever has the highest reputation of doing good judging in boxing, those judges need to get put in, and they need to be tested and reviewed before and after the fight, so that way there's no cheating, there's no fucking like, oh, hey, this promoter or this fucking piece of shit gives money to a judge to pay him or her off, and that judge can just basically not score the fight efficiently and just give a free win to the fighter on their scorecard. No, that shit needs to be extremely investigated. Get that shit out the way, and if those judges are caught, prosecute them, Get them the fuck out of boxing. Yes, but for that alone, I think that's a good fix. But either way, I just think like Canelo Alvarez, if he or anybody out of his own stable is listening, I think it makes all the sense in the world, man. I don't think Canelo Alvarez is the greatest fighter ever. I think Canelo Alvarez is the greatest cherry picker and the biggest piece of shit pussy ever because he knows what the fuck Floyd Mayweather did to him, and he doesn't want to relive that same nightmare with a guy, in any of his divisions that he competes now, or at the division he competes right now, to a guy like David Benavidez or Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, or possibly Caleb Plant. I think Caleb Plant is going to give Canelo issues. Even though Canelo thinks he's going to beat him, I think he's overlooking Caleb, and that's not a good idea. I think I think Canelo is going to have a really difficult night with Caleb. But that's just how I think. But let me know what you guys think. I'm going to get up out of here. I'm going to keep resting. Get ready for my shift later. Oh. But I appreciate everything. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.